Human mechanic receives the largest starship. His hands tremble before awakening it. Kieran Vale had seen big machines before. He had repaired mining drones larger than houses and freighters that carried entire colonies. But nothing prepared him for the sight of the starship before him. It was enormous, larger than any vessel he had ever imagined. Its hull gleamed under the lights of the orbital dry dock, 1,000 shades of silver and blue shifting across its surface. Strange alien symbols ran along the hull like veins of energy, glowing faintly in a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. Kieran swallowed hard, his hands tightening around the edges of his jumpsuit. The air was thin at this altitude, and the hum of the dry dock machinery vibrated through his bones. He could feel the ship beneath him, more alive than any machine should be. His heart raced. He had trained for years, worked on some of the most complex starship systems in the sector. But this was beyond human engineering. The alien engineers overseeing the project moved with calm precision, their elongated limbs and translucent skin giving them an appearance both fragile and alien. They had been watching him since he arrived. Whispers followed him as he walked toward the massive loading bay. "A human?" one muttered, its voice like the echo of glass chimes. How could he even operate this? Kieran ignored them. He didn't need their approval. He had survived longer than most humans in the outer colonies, learned to fix engines that no one else could touch, and built solutions from scraps that seemed impossible. Still, standing here, looking at the largest starship in known space, he felt a tremor of doubt. The control chamber awaited him, a small platform suspended inside the ship's hull. He stepped onto it, the floor vibrating faintly under his boots. The walls around him were filled with alien interfaces, panels of glowing symbols, shifting holographic screens, and a soft hum that seemed to respond to his presence. The starship was alive, and it was watching him as much as he was watching it. "Initialization sequence ready," a calm voice spoke from the AI interface. The voice was smooth, not human, but not unkind. Awaiting operator input, Kieran's hands trembled as he reached out. Every instinct in him screamed caution, but every part of his training urged him forward. He pressed the first sequence. A wave of energy pulsed through the ship. Lights along the hull shimmered brighter, and the hum in the air grew deeper, almost like a warning. The aliens outside the chamber whispered in disbelief. One of them stepped closer to the glass wall separating them from Kieran. Its eyes widened. He's starting it," it whispered. "Yes," another replied, its tone sharp with doubt. "The human has no right to do this. He will fail." Kieran ignored them. He didn't even know if he was doing it correctly, but he knew humans could adapt. Humans could think in ways aliens did not. He could see patterns, anticipate flaws, and react instinctively. That was the difference. As he followed the sequence, the ship responded in strange ways. Panels lit up as if acknowledging him. Systems that had been dormant for years began to hum, lights flashing in pulses that made it feel alive. Kieran realized something incredible. The ship was not resisting him, it was testing him. The alien engineers outside murmured again. "Impossible," one hissed. "It is responding to him, like it recognizes him." Kieran felt a thrill surge through him, mixed with fear. His hands were still shaking, but now for excitement as much as anxiety. He pressed the next sequence, and a soft vibration ran through the floor. The ship's engines, enormous enough to power an entire colony, began to glow with a faint blue light. Energy lines ran along the hull, pulsing rhythmically, almost like veins carrying life. He had no idea what the aliens had intended him to do. They had given him the schematics, yes, but the complexity of the vessel was beyond full comprehension. Every part of it had been designed for minds that could process hundreds of calculations per second. Humans weren't supposed to operate this ship. Humans were small, fragile, and slow, and yet, here he was. Kieran took a deep breath and continued. He adjusted a sequence that seemed off, instinct guiding him. The ship responded immediately, the energy lines pulsing stronger, brighter. The AI interface spoke again. Adjustment optimal. Efficiency increased by 0.003%. Kieran frowned. "Is that good?" he muttered. The AI responded simply, "For human operators, exceptional." A smile crept across his face. He could feel it, the connection forming between human and machine. The alien engineers outside were staring, some open-mouthed, others frowning in confusion. How could a human, with no experience in alien engineering, manipulate the largest starship in the galaxy? He pressed another panel, and the ship shuddered. A low, melodic hum filled the chamber, vibrating through his bones. He realized the ship was not just responding to commands, it was alive in its own way. It was waiting for him to think beyond the programming, to act instinctively. Then came the warning lights. Red and yellow streaks flashed across the holographic displays. A caution panel lit up, indicating the ship's power cores were reaching critical levels. Kieran froze. His hands hovered over the controls. One wrong move, and he could destroy the ship, and possibly himself, but he did not panic. He could feel the pulse of the ship beneath him, almost like a heartbeat. The AI interface spoke again, calm and measured. "Human operator, I detect hesitation. Trust your instincts. You are capable." Kieran smiled nervously. "You don't know me," he muttered. The next moments passed in a blur. He adjusted the energy distribution, rerouted power from auxiliary systems, and focused on the main core. The red lights faded, replaced by a steady green glow. The hum deepened, resonating in harmony with his own heartbeat. Outside the dry dock, the alien engineers whispered furiously among themselves. "He is controlling it. The core is stabilizing under human hands." "Impossible," one said again, shaking its head. "It should have rejected him. It should have failed." Kieran ignored them. He had reached the point where he no longer felt fear, only focus. He moved to the next panel, inputting sequences almost instinctively. Symbols shifted before his eyes, forming patterns that the aliens had not anticipated. The ship began to respond faster than the programming intended. Then, a sound unlike anything Kieran had heard before filled the chamber. A deep resonance, like 1,000 voices in unison. The eye interface spoke almost reverently. "Human, you are not just operator. You are conductor. You awaken the vessel." Kieran's breath caught in his throat. The ship was alive, and he was its first true human touch. A shiver ran down his spine as he realized the magnitude of what he had done. He had activated the largest starship in the galaxy, something no human was ever supposed to achieve. The aliens outside could only stare. They had expected failure, perhaps a spectacular one, but instead they witnessed a human master a vessel meant for beings far more advanced. Kieran did not feel pride, not yet. He felt a surge of responsibility. The ship was awake now. It would do what he commanded, but it could also reject him if he faltered. The chamber lights dimmed as the ship's systems fully engaged. Energy flowed along the hull in pulsing lines of blue and white, illuminating the dry dock like a new sun. Kieran could feel the heat, the energy, the sheer potential of the ship. He could imagine what it could do in the right hands, and what it could destroy in the wrong ones. And now, it was in his hands. A soft vibration ran through the platform, and a holographic display projected above the console, showing the vastness of the galaxy beyond the dock. Stars, planets, and distant nebulae filled the view. The ship awaited its pilot. Kieran took a deep breath and placed his hands on the main control interface. His hands no longer trembled as much. His nerves had settled into focus and determination. Somewhere in the back of his mind he could hear the whispers of the alien engineers. He ignored them. For the first time in history, a human would pilot the largest starship ever built, and whatever came next, Kieran Vale knew one thing: the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. The hum grew louder. The hull vibrated. Light streaked across the chamber like rivers of energy. Kieran pressed a single command sequence. A beam of energy shot through the bay, the ship responding instantly. It was alive. It was ready. And Kieran, human, small, underestimated, was ready to awaken it fully. Kieran Vale's hands rested on the main control interface, the colossal starship humming beneath his touch like a living thing. The energy lines along the hull pulsed brighter now, tracing paths that even the alien engineers had never expected. The vessel was awake, and it seemed to recognize him. A thrill ran through Kieran's chest. For the first time in his life, he felt truly connected to a machine. The AI spoke again, its voice resonating in the chamber. Human operator, your control input is unique. Your intuition is unmatched. Kieran swallowed, unsure whether it was a compliment or a warning. Unique, huh? He muttered. Let's see if I can live up to it. He had no time to wonder. The ship's systems were immense, more complex than anything he had ever encountered. Every panel he touched, every lever he moved, seemed to awaken more of the starship's potential. Subsystems flickered to life. Sensors that had been dormant for centuries began scanning the galaxy, and engines thrummed with a power that made the dry dock walls shake. From outside the chamber, the alien engineers watched in disbelief. One of them, the senior overseer with shimmering green skin, whispered sharply, "How can a human manipulate systems meant for our minds? He shouldn't even be able to interface with the core." Another alien, younger, more cautious, replied, "He isn't just interfacing, he's enhancing it. Look at the power readings." Indeed, the ship was reacting in ways no one had calculated. Minor inefficiencies in the energy cores, previously ignored as negligible, were being corrected instinctively by Kieran. He had no manual, no instructions, only instinct and experience. Yet every adjustment was perfect. The engines glowed brighter, the hum deepened, and the energy flow through the hull became smoother. Kieran's eyes widened as he noticed something incredible. The fusion conduits. "They're synchronized," he whispered. "They're waiting for me to optimize them." He pressed a series of sequences almost automatically, rerouting power where it was needed most. The AI's voice now carried a tone of awe. "Human, your adjustments exceed optimal alien parameters. Efficiency levels unprecedented. Systems responsive." Kieran blinked. "Unprecedented?" he said softly. "I'm just trying not to blow us up." Outside, the aliens were in chaos. Alarms were going off across the dry dock as energy levels rose. The ship's engines began to glow with a blue-white intensity that reflected off the walls of the orbital platform. One of the engineers shouted, It's beyond control." The senior alien froze, its long fingers tightening. No human should be able to do this, if he pushes further. But Kieran was already pushing further. He adjusted power flows between the auxiliary shields and the main core, watching as the pulsing energy lines along the hull began to sync like a living heartbeat. The ship's hum deepened to a resonant tone that reverberated through his chest, almost like it was speaking to him directly. And maybe it was. "You understand me, don't you?" Kieran muttered, more to himself than to the AI. "I don't know your language, but I can feel you." The AI responded in its usual calm tone, but now it seemed softer, almost curious. "Yes, human, your instincts are compatible. Your mind operates differently from my designers. You are unique." Kieran chuckled nervously. Unique? Yeah, I guess that's one way to put it. He could feel a bond forming with the starship, an understanding beyond commands and sequences. It was responding to his intuition, moving, adjusting, and preparing for tasks he hadn't even imagined. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just piloting a starship. This was awakening a giant that had slept for centuries, a machine built to rival entire fleets. Then came the first real test. A panel flashed red, a warning that the main propulsion system was unstable. If he didn't act, the dry dock itself could collapse under the ship's energy. Kieran froze for only a second before acting. He rerouted power from secondary systems to stabilize the core, making split-second adjustments that no alien engineer could calculate. The ship responded immediately, its thrusters glowing brighter, the hum stabilizing into a harmonic resonance. The energy lines along the hull pulsed in time with Kieran's heartbeat. The aliens outside gasped. He stabilized it with instinct, one whispered. Yes, another replied. It is as if he thinks like the ship itself. Kieran stepped back slightly from the main panel, feeling the hum run through the floor beneath his boots. He was exhausted, but exhilaration coursed through him. His hands, once trembling, now moved with confidence. Every adjustment, every command felt natural. The ship wasn't just listening, it was learning with him. Okay, let's see what else you've got, Kieran said softly. He began exploring other systems, shields, sensors, navigational arrays. Each one responded to his human logic in ways the aliens hadn't predicted. He noticed flaws in the alien design, small inefficiencies that even their advanced minds overlooked. He corrected them instinctively, and with each adjustment the ship hummed louder, almost as if approving him. Then a new panel activated, showing an image of a nearby planet. The Starship's long-range scanners detected unusual energy readings, signs of a collapsing orbital station. Kieran's eyes widened. We've got a problem, he muttered. Without thinking, he began rerouting the Starship's auxiliary systems to stabilize the anomaly. The aliens outside panicked. The human is touching systems he shouldn't. That station will collapse if he miscalculates. But Kieran didn't miscalculate. Using a combination of instinct, experience, and human intuition, he synchronized the ship's energy fields with the station's failing core. A soft vibration ran through the dry dock as the station stabilized. Lights flickered, systems hummed, and the orbital structure held together. The alien overseers stared in stunned silence. Impossible, one said. He has saved lives by instinct alone. Kieran allowed himself a brief smile. He was starting to understand the true potential of humanity, not in sheer strength, but in creativity, intuition, and adaptability. Where the aliens relied on perfect calculations and protocols, humans improvise, and that improvisation could turn the tide of any battle. As he explored further, the ship's AI began to communicate more directly. Human, your methods are unpredictable, but effective. Your mind interprets systems in ways we never imagined. Kieran laughed quietly. You're telling me I'm better than you at this. In ways, the AI replied, its tone neutral but almost admiring. You are compatible with the vessel's full potential. No other operator could achieve this. The ship pulsed again, a wave of energy running through the dry dock. Kieran felt the vibration in his chest. He realized something remarkable. He wasn't controlling the ship. He was awakening it. Outside, the alien engineers were frantic. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and the senior overseer barked orders. But Kieran was beyond their panic. He had found a rhythm, a flow between him and the Starship. Every sequence he initiated, every lever he adjusted, was met with immediate, perfect response. The ship's energy cores glowed brighter. The hum deepened into a resonant melodic tone that seemed almost musical. Kieran realized he could feel the ship's intentions before they manifested. It wanted to move, to explore, to test itself. And he was its guide. A warning light flashed again, but Kieran did not hesitate. He pressed a sequence instinctively, and the ship's shields expanded, stabilizing its energy output. The hum became harmonious, the vibration calming. The AI's voice now carried a tone of respect. Human, you are no ordinary operator. You are awakening the vessel as intended, yet in ways we did not predict. Kieran took a deep breath. He had done it. For the first time in history, a human had fully interacted with a starship beyond alien comprehension, and the implications were staggering. But even as he reveled in the accomplishment, a nagging thought crept into his mind. The galaxy beyond the dry dock was vast, full of unknown threats, hostile fleets, and civilizations that would never forgive a human controlling such a vessel. Kieran shook his head, focusing back on the ship. There would be time to worry about enemies later. For now, he had to master the giant beneath his hands. He could feel it responding, adapting, learning with him. This was no longer just a starship. It was a partner. And together, they could achieve feats no alien mind had ever imagined. The parting glance from the alien overseers did not go unnoticed. They had expected failure, or at least hesitation. Instead, they witnessed a human bend the impossible to instinct. Kieran smiled faintly. Perhaps the galaxy had underestimated humans for the last time. As the sun rose over the orbital platform, Kieran stood at the main console, hands steady, heart racing with anticipation. The starship pulsed beneath him, alive and ready, waiting for its pilot's next move. He didn't yet know what the galaxy had in store, but he knew one thing. Humans were far from ordinary, and he was about to prove it. And somewhere deep in the core, Kieran felt a pulse, a recognition. The ship and the human were now partners, ready to awaken the galaxy together. Kieran Vale took a deep breath as the colossal starship's hull shivered with raw energy. The dry dock gates began to open, revealing the vastness of space beyond the orbital platform. Stars glittered like scattered jewels, and distant planets rotated silently in the void. He could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing in, but he also felt the pulse of the ship beneath him, a living, breathing partner, ready for the first true test. The alien engineers outside stared in disbelief. "He's going to pilot it alone," one whispered. "No human could possibly handle this." Kieran ignored them. He didn't think like a human in the conventional sense. He thought like someone who had faced impossible machines before, who had survived disasters others never imagined, and who had learned to trust instinct above all else. The moment came. He pressed the final sequence, and the starship responded immediately. The thrusters flared, sending a ripple of energy through the dry dock. Metal groaned as the enormous vessel slowly lifted, defying the weight that had kept it grounded for centuries. Kieran felt the vibration in his chest and smiled. The ship wasn't just obeying him. It was thrilled to move. He guided it carefully, ascending out of the dry dock. Lights flashed along the hull, scanning for obstacles, but the vessel moved with grace despite its size. Aliens on observation decks gasped as the starship maneuvered with precision no alien pilot could have achieved. "Impossible," the senior overseer muttered. "It's outmaneuvering even our simulations." Kieran's grin widened. "Yeah," he said softly. "But you didn't account for human improvisation." Once clear of the dry dock, he tested the engines at full power. The starship surged forward, leaving trails of light that reflected off the nearby moons. Kieran could feel the ship's energy responding to his thoughts, anticipating movements, adjusting thrust, and maintaining perfect balance. He realized with a thrill that this was beyond piloting. It was dancing with a partner who could think faster than any alien mind. He scanned the nearby sector and found something alarming. A fleet of alien warships moving at high speed toward the dry dock. Intelligence relayed by the station indicated that the fleet had been sent to seize the starship, likely before humans could even attempt to operate it. Kieran's pulse quickened. "So they want to fight?" he muttered. "All right then. Let's see what humans can do." He engaged the starship's defensive systems. Shields shimmered into existence, forming a dome of energy far stronger than any conventional human or alien design. Turrets on the hull activated, and the ship's sensors began scanning the approaching fleet. Kieran's mind raced as he processed the situation. The fleet was massive, far too large for one human and one ship to confront head-on. But humans didn't fight like aliens. Humans adapted, improvised, and used ingenuity instead of sheer numbers. He initiated a series of maneuvers that no alien pilot would have dared. The starship shifted into the gravitational shadow of a nearby moon, disappearing from the enemy sensors. Then, in a sudden burst of speed, it appeared behind a smaller battlecruiser, unleashing precise energy pulses that disabled its engines. The fleet's communication channels erupted in confusion. "Impossible!" one commander hissed. "The human is predicting our moves." Kieran chuckled quietly. He was using instinct, intuition, and a deep understanding of the ship's capabilities, tools no alien could match. He led the starship through tight asteroid fields, using debris as cover while launching countermeasures against the fleet's attacks. Every move shocked the alien fleet. Their calculations, perfect on paper, were useless against a human mind that improvised faster than their systems could react. The starship, enormous and powerful, moved like a nimble predator in Kieran's hands. As the battle continued, Kieran discovered more of the starship's hidden capabilities. He activated energy conduits that allowed the vessel to bend light and partially cloak itself. He rerouted auxiliary power to shield generators, creating temporary barriers that absorbed entire volleys of energy blasts. He even used the ship's gravitational manipulation system to destabilize enemy formations, sending smaller vessels tumbling helplessly into debris fields. From the observation decks, alien engineers were screaming in disbelief. "He's playing with physics," one cried. "No human could do this." But Kieran wasn't thinking about being human. He was thinking about survival, improvisation, and efficiency. Each move was calculated instinctively, each adjustment made in real time, as he felt the ship respond with perfect harmony. One particularly massive warship attempted to flank him, cutting off escape routes. Kieran's eyes narrowed. He scanned the vessel's energy patterns, then made a split-second decision. The starship's engines flared, and it executed a maneuver no alien simulator had ever predicted. With a sudden surge, it reversed thrust while rotating on its axis, sending a concussive wave of energy that knocked the enemy vessel off balance. Kieran smiled grimly. Never underestimate humans. The fleet's morale began to crumble. A few smaller ships retreated in confusion, unsure of how to fight a human-controlled starship that seemed to anticipate every move. The larger ships hesitated, their commanders arguing with one another. Meanwhile, Kieran focused on the main objective, escaping the sector with the ship intact. He scanned for the fastest route out and engaged the jump drives. But the fleet wasn't ready to let him go. Energy beams converged, attempting to lock onto the vessel. Kieran gritted his teeth. Improvisation again. He activated a combination of gravity bends, cloaking pulses, and thrust bursts, weaving through the energy streams like a thread through a needle. The starship responded perfectly, almost as if it knew he would find a way. Finally, with one final burst of speed, he entered a jump corridor that propelled the starship beyond the fleet's reach. Stars blurred as the vessel slipped into hyperspace, leaving the alien fleet behind, stunned and defeated in confusion rather than destruction. Inside the starship, Kieran leaned back against the console, breathing heavily. The hum of the ship was calm now, almost affectionate. "We made it," he said softly, a small grin on his face. The AI responded with a tone of respect, almost human in its emotion. Human operator, efficiency and instinct, unmatched. He allowed himself a moment to reflect. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries. Other species thought humans were small, weak, and inefficient. But Kieran had just proven the opposite. With creativity, intuition, and courage, a human could control a vessel the size of cities and survive a fleet attack that would destroy any alien crew. The implications were staggering. The galaxy would take notice. One human pilot, alone, had outmaneuvered an entire fleet and awakened a starship thought too complex for mortal hands. Kieran leaned over the main console and observed the galaxy stretched out before him. There were countless stars, countless planets, countless civilizations. Some would fear him, some would seek to challenge him, and some might even try to destroy humanity for daring to prove itself. But Kieran smiled faintly. Humans didn't back down. Humans didn't quit. And humans adapted in ways no alien could predict. The starship pulsed under his hands. Alive. Ready. It had survived centuries waiting for a pilot like him. And Kieran understood something deeply. The future of humanity had just begun. He looked back at the jump corridor, knowing the galaxy outside was full of challenges. Entire fleets, hostile civilizations, and unknown dangers awaited. But for the first time, Kieran didn't feel fear. He had something more powerful than fear, the confidence of a human mind paired with a living starship. "Let's see what the galaxy thinks of us," he said. The ship thrummed in response, almost like a low laugh. It was ready, and so was he. From the distant planets and space stations that had observed the human in the dry dock, rumors spread quickly. A human had piloted the largest starship in known space, outmaneuvered an entire fleet, and survived. Across the galaxy, species began to whisper, to wonder, to rethink everything they knew about humanity. Kieran didn't know how far this journey would go, but he knew this: humans were no longer insignificant. One human, with skill, courage, and instinct, could change the course of history. And with the starship at his command, there was no telling how far he could go. As hyperspace stretched the stars into long streaks of light, Kieran sat back and let himself savor the moment. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and now humanity had begun to awaken. The hum of the starship filled the cockpit like a heartbeat. It had learned to trust him. He had learned to trust it. Together, they were unstoppable. And somewhere deep in the starship's core, Kieran felt a pulse, a quiet acknowledgement that the galaxy's rules were about to change forever. Kieran Vale gripped the controls of the colossal starship, his eyes scanning the vastness of space stretched before him. Stars flickered like distant fires, and massive warships loomed in the distance, their hulls gleaming under alien suns. The galaxy had noticed him now. Word of a human pilot controlling the largest starship had spread like wildfire, and the combined fleets of multiple civilizations were converging to stop him. He exhaled slowly. This was it. The moment humans had been underestimated, and now it was time to prove their worth. The first wave of the fleet arrived, a dozen heavily armed dreadnoughts, each bristling with weapons capable of destroying planets. Kieran's fingers danced over the interface, adjusting shields, energy flows, and thrusters with precision. The starship responded as if it were an extension of his body, every system synchronized perfectly. Every energy pulse matched his heartbeat. From the bridge of the flagship, an alien commander barked orders, his voice thick with disbelief. "Concentrate fire! One human cannot possibly survive against all of them." Kieran smiled faintly. "They haven't met us yet," he murmured. He began the first maneuver. The starship shifted almost invisibly, using gravitational distortions to hide its approach. Lasers streaked past, missing by mere meters, while Kieran analyzed the fleet's formation. The dreadnoughts were powerful, but rigid. They relied on strict calculations and predictable tactics. Humans didn't calculate the same way. Humans adapted, improvised, and imagined beyond the rules. Kieran exploited every weakness. He adjusted the ship's energy field to manipulate nearby asteroids, sending massive rocks hurtling toward the enemy in precise arcs. Shields flared, some dreadnoughts took hits, others veered off course trying to avoid the debris. The alien fleets wheeled, confused. "How is one human doing this?" one officer shouted. Kieran's grin widened. "Adaptability," he said simply. "That's what humans do best." He activated the starship's auxiliary systems, sending a pulse of energy that temporarily scrambled enemy sensors. Dreadnoughts fired wildly, missing by kilometers. Kieran used the opportunity to position the ship strategically, then unleashed a precise energy volley that disabled the main engines of one of the lead dreadnoughts. The massive vessel spun helplessly, drifting away from the formation. The fleet commander's voice broke into panic. "Impossible! This is impossible!" Kieran didn't answer. He was focused entirely on the battle, improvising with instinct rather than protocol. The Starship, enormous and powerful, moved like a predator in his hands. He directed energy flows to gravitational manipulators, creating temporary rifts that sent smaller ships tumbling. He rerouted power to shield generators, creating temporary barriers that absorbed multiple volleys of plasma fire. One of the enemy's capital ships attempted to flank him, cutting off potential escape routes. Kieran's eyes narrowed. He quickly analyzed the vessel's energy patterns, then made a daring move. The Starship rotated on its axis while firing synchronized energy bursts from multiple arrays, destroying the flanking ship's navigational system. The vessel spiraled out of control, smashing into a nearby asteroid cluster. The alien fleets were now in chaos. Ships collided. Energy beams crossed in uncontrolled patterns, and commanders struggled to maintain cohesion. Kieran's grin widened. Humans weren't about brute force. They were about creativity, quick thinking, and using every possible advantage. And now, the largest starship in history was his tool and partner. But Kieran knew the real test was yet to come. Beyond this fleet, larger forces were approaching. Multiple civilizations had sent their elite battle cruisers to seize or destroy the vessel. Failure was not an option. Humanity's reputation, and perhaps survival, hung in the balance. He engaged the Starship's jump engines for tactical repositioning. Energy flares pulsed along the hull, and Kieran felt the ship respond, almost like it understood his intentions before he fully thought them. The hypermaneuver allowed him to bypass heavy fire while placing the Starship in an ideal position. He activated a long-range targeting system, locking onto multiple enemy engines simultaneously. In a single, masterful strike, he disabled the propulsion systems of 2 dreadnoughts, leaving them helpless. The remaining fleet faltered, unsure how to counter a single pilot who seemed to anticipate every move. Kieran's mind raced. He realized the fleet was relying too much on predictable tactics. Humans weren't predictable. Humans improvised in real time, blending creativity with courage. He used the Starship's cloaking field intermittently, darting between positions, creating confusion. Energy beams struck empty space, while the Starship's attacks silently dismantled enemy defenses. A massive energy blast from one dreadnought tore through the void, coming dangerously close to Kieran's ship. He instinctively recalibrated the shields, redirecting energy from auxiliary systems. The blast glanced off the hull, leaving it untouched. He allowed himself a brief chuckle. "Not today," he muttered. Then came the final threat. A combined strike force of 3 capital ships converged, their firepower concentrated on a single point. Kieran's heart raced. One mistake could destroy the Starship, and him with it. He focused. The Starship responded to his calm, decisive movements. Using a combination of gravitational distortions, energy redirection, and precise maneuvers, he split the enemy formation. 2 of the capital ships collided in a catastrophic miscalculation, their own attacks destroying each other. The last vessel tried to retreat, but Kieran's ship struck with precision, cutting through its shields and disabling engines in a single coordinated strike. The fleets were shattered. Survivors retreated in fear, leaving behind wreckage and confusion. Across the galaxy, reports spread. One human had defeated entire fleets using a Starship beyond comprehension. Kieran leaned back against the console, feeling the hum of the vessel like a heartbeat beneath him. He had done it. The AI spoke softly, almost reverently. "Human, your methods are extraordinary. You have surpassed all expectations. The galaxy will remember this." Kieran smiled, exhaustion mixed with triumph. "And they'll never forget humans again." He allowed himself a moment to look around the Starship's bridge. The galaxy stretched out before him, endless and full of possibilities. Planets, civilizations, fleets, all had assumed humans were weak, fragile, and insignificant. Yet here he was, a single mechanic from the outer colonies, commanding the largest starship in known space, undefeated and alive. From distant observatories and remote space stations, aliens were beginning to whisper, rumors spreading like wildfire. The story of the human pilot who had outmaneuvered entire fleets reached every corner of the galaxy. Some species feared humanity, others reconsidered alliances and strategies. For the first time, humans were not underestimated. They were respected and feared. Kieran knew the journey wasn't over. The galaxy was vast and threats were everywhere, but now he understood the truth. Humans were not defined by size, strength, or technology alone. Humans thrived on ingenuity, adaptability, and the courage to face impossible odds. He touched the control interface lightly, feeling the energy lines pulse in response. The starship seemed alive, almost sentient, in its recognition of him as its pilot. Kieran smiled faintly. "We make a good team," he said. The AI's response was almost a purr of approval. For the first time in history, a human and a starship of unimaginable power had proven that courage, instinct, and intelligence could surpass brute force and centuries of alien superiority. As the starship moved through the galaxy, leaving the wreckage of the defeated fleets behind, Kieran reflected on what humanity had accomplished. They had been underestimated, mocked, and ignored. Yet here he was, standing at the center of a turning point. One human, against all odds, had awakened the largest starship ever built and changed the perception of the galaxy forever. And Kieran knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate humans. The starship pulsed beneath him like a living thing, energy flowing in harmony with his heartbeat. Kieran allowed himself a rare moment of pride. Humanity was no longer fragile. Humans were clever, daring, and capable of defying expectations in ways no other species could imagine. He looked out into the void where stars stretched endlessly. Somewhere out there, more fleets would come. More civilizations would challenge him. But Kieran Vale was ready. Humans had awakened, and with the starship by his side, there was nothing they could not face. The hum of the starship resonated through him, the heartbeat of a new era. And in that moment, Kieran smiled, knowing humanity had truly arrived in the galaxy. The human mechanic who had once trembled before awakening the colossal starship was now its master, a symbol of human ingenuity, courage, and indomitable spirit.